There is an esoteric saying which is, as above, so below. We can speculate about what is above, which is the sky, and below, which is our earth. We're going to speculate about what's going on in the concept of the 21st century, and there's an amazing new discovery throughout the universe, and we're paying a little more attention to the earth. I'm Agneta Borstein. I'm an astrologer, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this program, From the Sky to Earth. Today we're going to talk about some of the concept of forces of the elements. Throughout the 12 zodiac sign, we divide the kind of like energy field through, when we see astrology, through fire, earth, air, and water. So the first element is fire. We're not going to talk about the fire going on throughout the country of America, but in astrology, of course, an old symbol becomes very important in a changing society, and we will talk about that today as well. So the fire elements, the first fire elements are the Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Of course, Leo is always the leader, but also Aries has a very way of taking charge and being the pioneer leaders. Our current president, Obama, is a Leo, so he takes charge. Sagittarius is another fire sign, and that's an interesting aspect about the way of looking at things, and they always inventing, and they have ideas, and they sell their concept. So they become pioneers, and they're often self-motivated people, and they inspire all of us. Now, of course, on the other hand, with too much fire in your chart, would be egotistic, maybe a little selfish, and short-tempered. Aries is known to be a little short-tempered, but so might we all. We will find a little bit in this program too about changes, because at this point, since 2008, 2011, and perhaps continuing, we are filming this program in 2015. So Uranus, the planet of unexpected changes, went into Aries in 2011 and will stay there for cycle until 2019. And also, we just in the summer month experienced Jupiter in Leo, which now there was a lot of energy and of course fire, as we might have mentioned, and that's going to change now in 2015, and it will go into an earth sign, which we will get to in the element earth pretty soon. We also have South Node in Aries up to the fall of 2015 or November of 2015. The South Node is an intersection of the Sun and the Moon. It's a certain fate and karma involved with that when we study the nodes in astrology. For you who know that, might know that as well. And also an important point at the current situation is Saturn has gone into Sagittarius, which would then have that fire sign. Saturn might not be a very popular sign, but it is structure, discipline, but it's also part of control, and we're going to see a lot of changes the next 2 years when Saturn stays in Sagittarius up to December of 2017. So we have this shift when planet moves, of course, around the ecliptic, and the Saturn in Sagittarius promise new law, borders, closing, opening, a lot of restriction in relating to the law, and maybe the law of the land can also change. We come to the next element, Earth, which is, of course, Mother Earth. We find a lot of respect and a lot of attention is being paid to the earth at the moment, or throughout the last few years. And when we then find the earth elements, they are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And of course, they are the earth, they are practical, realistic, dependable, grounded, and sometimes when we deal with a chart, if you will, there's always the 10 planets, there's 12 zodiac signs, in this new 21st century, as I mentioned, we find a lot of new discovery, and we embrace them all as astrologers. They can also be too materialistic, indication of too much earth, looking at wealth, if you will. They can be stubborn and kind of lazy in their approach for their success, as for example Capricorn might be late bloomers, as Virgo just plug along and get their goals done and very dedicated. Taurus, of course, the bull, Many times we take the zodiac signs as being the symbols of animals. Most of them are, actually. So that's the earth elements. And we have Earth quite important at the moment. Pluto, the planet that might be contradiction in the way of looking at planets, it gets promoted, it gets demoted, but on our computer, as I had mentioned a few times before in my programs, we can't take him away because he's on our laptops and computers, the symbol that is. So Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008 and will stay there throughout 2024. And that's very significant because that has not happened. Is 248-year cycle, and that's very important because by the time 248 years ago, that's when the country was born, United States of America, that is. So it's a big shift about how to pay attention to earthly matters at this point, and perhaps I'm not politically involved, or I try not to be, I'm neutral, but the whole climate change might have been respected a little bit more. It's just not the odd people that are talking about it. Science, government are starting to pay attention more to the earth. And we are halfway through some very strong cycles that we're also going to talk about later. And I had also mentioned Jupiter in Virgo from August 2015 and throughout 2016, so that's a shorter period. But that will also be, a lot of things will happen in this year coming and throughout the fall of 2015 and 2016 in relating to the shift of earthly qualities and the way we pay attention to what's going on in Earth. And the Pluto in Capricorn, you can look at some other episodes actually under nutmeg.org for previous episodes of my program From the Sky to Earth, where you can find more fundamental and basic information about the zodiac signs, what they mean, the planets, and a little bit of cycles. So please visit it. So we pay attention to the earth, and we are so appreciative every day that we find ourselves safe in our homes, in our surroundings. And the next element is interesting is air. Air is interesting. Is it polluted? Is it sky? Is beautiful? The image that we might see on the screen right now is the discovery in 2013 by a whole team. Of course, it took a long time to discover the Higgs boson, which is the particle. When we were in school, we knew the particle was the atom, and now it's gotten even more. And supposedly, the science, which is Uranus going to Aries, is also a very important part for our science and new discovery and self-images about what are we doing here anyway. A little heavy question, but still the air, the quality of the air, the mind is going through a big transformation for us to understand Higgs boson, might understand where we come from. If you want to look it up, a lot of good information on the internet. So the air elements are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Of course, Gemini being the talker and having fun and intellectual, as well as Libra. Libra is very kind and a negotiator. They always like to be kind in their own ways of looking at things and try to be fair to all those around. And Aquarius, of course, is the sign for what we consider a new age in the 21st century. That could be another segment for that consideration. Some air elements, as Gemini, could be the mind. They say we have, there's that Gemini that has so many different aspects to them that we find they can be undecisive and non-committal, but it's not always so. We have to look at the whole chart in itself, so we should not really discriminate one sign from another. So air in planetary action at the moment is interesting. There is no major transition going on or transit, even though on a monthly base, of course, we have the sun in Libra as I speak, and then there is the sun in Gemini throughout. But the major forces in the universe that has affected as above, so below, are not in the element of air, but is very active, in the air pollution, in the negative way of looking at it, but also air to become aware, the mind. And again, this is another picture of that Higgs boson that are very interesting to study should you have nothing else to talk about or study. I love this whole concept because it makes us also be aware of that new energy that is accepted for a new way of looking at matters and take care of matters on Earth, on the quality as we're talking about the elements. So the water, the dear water, it's supposedly we have 2/3 of the water on the Earth, and when we're born we are constitution with like 90% water, and then we get older and we get more dense in the water quality. So of course we should drink water. We should drink clear water. And in that part of the element we should be aware of just there is a big planet that has changed, and we will get into that. So stay with me from this program about astrology from the sky to Earth. I'm Agneta Borstein and I'm an astrologer. So the water elements are Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. They are very caring, sensitive, and Pisces could be considered intuitive, or all of them. My favorite sign for artists is Cancer because it belongs to the moon, and there's a lot to give out from that soul essence about sharing. Scorpio, of course, has the bad reputation at times, but is a very, very dedicated and an honest sign, Scorpio. And the Pisces is also very strong in its way of looking at different aspects, and they can be overly emotionally. They can be over-absorbed about situations, and they soak it all in. And it's a design for addiction too. They have that in them that they like to escape, maybe just, sail in that water into the sunset. But I also think that is part, as I thought about, sometimes I think about things to present. And I do think that the concern about drugs throughout the world, whether legal or illegal, does have something to do with this when Neptune went into Pisces in 2012, which we will get to as well. So the water elements also pertain to the change that is going on in our ecological system at the moment. Would we please not put plastic in the water? I never really got that, but maybe we have to put the garbage somewhere. But there's also research that some countries have really paid attention to the water and start to clean it up, which is also the global awareness of what has to be done, or hopefully so. The water in planetary action is very interesting because Neptune in Pisces is very strong. Throughout the ecliptic, it has their own little journey throughout all the 12 zodiac signs. So in 2012, Neptune traveled throughout all the 12 zodiac signs and will stay in Pisces until 2026, which is actually the sign where it feels home. It belongs to home, to that energy of being home. And the last time Neptune was in Pisces was 1846. And there was a lot of matters coming up, surfaced up at that time, as in, don't want to repeat that, but the Civil War and all that's in Europe, there was a lot of revolution. But also I think that Neptune has something to do with the masses, because there's a wave of consciousness. Is a wave of awareness, is aware of saying, I can't deal with this anymore, so I have to release my emotions. And I think in the masses, this Neptune in Pisces throughout 2012 and 2026 will be very much involved with this awareness of the awareness of not just emotion, but masses of we have, of course, unfortunately, the image of the migration from warlike countries as Syria, Afghanistan, and Iran, but it's also part of people like raising up to a different level, and that's why we have all the different positive ways of looking at health food, yoga, the different alternative ways of living that we also have. Saturn was in Scorpio recently, and people didn't like that because then it came to visit during the summer of 2015, a little bit extra strong messages. There was all kinds of political discussions going on, but let's save that for another time perhaps. So the water elements comes into purification, of course, and we find that paying attention to whatever you have an interest, because Uranus, when Uranus went into Aries, the last time it was in there, the fire planet, remember, paying attention, was 1781. So again, Uranus comes in the 8-year cycle, but it comes around. And 1781 was a very important time in the world as United States of America was born throughout those times. So we're going to take a look at a chart, just because in June 2012, when this shift happened in the elements, there was some kind of rumor, which was of course just rumor, it was not reality, that there was an end of the world. We are so not into the end of the world. It is a continuation of cycles and learning by paying attention to these shifts. And at this point in 2012, the Pluto was 8 degrees. In astrology, we used anything from 0 to 30 degrees. So when it changed, when that shift in the element, forces of the element changed in 2008, 2012, 2011 as well, and it will go all the way to 2024, then we have to accept that right now we're in the middle. This is our new message of positive thinking and being aware of the changes. So at that point in 2012, both Uranus and Pluto were 8 degrees, and they were in what we call a square head, square challenge. But they are there to be aware, as in Uranus, Pluto says, we need to be heard. And you know, in the olden days, many of the people, habitant as you and I, would kind of worship the gods as in a daily living. And so we pay attention to and respect those forces and try to just work with them rather than against them. This one is the 7th Uranus-Pluto meeting of the forces of the elements. Now they were up to, in March of 2015, which then they were in 15 degrees, both Pluto and Uranus. They met 7 times through that interaction of the elements. And I like that the world and politicians and communities became more aware of there is a change. Many politicians still insist that there is no climate change, but there is that fact that we might want to just respect in our own little world and continue having our vegetables in our garden and trying to do the best of doing that little extra things about recycle that in the old, way before, I was told you recycled everything. Well, now we have to. It's the law. It's necessary. So those forces of that element comes into play. So what I wanted to say, that one more energy of Uranus will shift in 2018 and 2019, because that would be how Uranus moves quick. There's a quick answer, but the awareness is revolution, uniqueness, liberation, freedom for any type of liberation that you want to express yourself as free as you can. That's also force in the energy as in the elements. And in 2018, we will see that Uranus and Pluto has separate, but they are still kind of in now, up to 2016, also kind of holding hands a little bit. But at that point, Uranus will go into Taurus. And as we remember, Taurus is an earth sign. And the earth sign makes us aware of worship this time that we are here and make the best out of it, especially in a surrounding that we could make safe and be able to perhaps integrate that into our daily living. And that would be astrology. The language of astrology is very practical and interesting, because we would take many times the interesting aspect of the moons and the sun, and there is the full moon. You can look at another segment that I have talked about the moon, which is my favorite of them all. So we have this hope with the elements coming through. If you happen to know your chart, if you have a lot of fire in your chart, you still might deal with Uranus in Aries. It could trine, it could do good in your chart. Of course, it always do. We always find good things there. And then if you have a lot of the Aries as in fire, but also earth, then you also will be mid degree, if you will. If you look it up, there's so many sources now on the internet that you can look it up, and you can also look up your own chart under astrolabe.com, www.astrolabe.com, to see your chart, to see if you have a lot of these elements that we're talking about tonight. And you might have Pisces, which is the water sign. You might have a lot of Pisces in your chart, so that will hit all the different degrees, if you will, because at this point in 2018, when Uranus leaves this strong transition that it has, and they actually met before, of course, there's cycles within cycles, and they met 1960s and the 30s, and then again, here we came. So it's a part of accepting cycles and be ready for it and embrace the changes. And the kind of more a little bit for you who got shocked looking at a chart, this is also a way to look at just the ecliptic circling around from Pluto, Uranus. The outer planets affect mass consciousness. Of course, if it hits your individual chart, you would also be affected. And so we come into this phase about looking at elements, even eclipses happens, natural cycle, of course, and we take the forces from the sky to earth and respect that in the way that we can put it into practical applications and find that some species, this is a favorite little toad that visited me in my backyard. I think he's so cute. He stayed there for a long time. I don't know if he's there now, but we also need to pay attention to that, all the aspects of politically, ecologically, and the different aspects of that. So I do thank you for visiting me from the sky to earth, and we hope to be able to see you another time. Let's see, that is, let's see. As it is, we're going to look at another just to say a few little things more about another planet, the changes that we have from the way of looking at the 2018 and 19. We are midterm in this big force that started to change in the elements. And in that part, in 2024 and 2025, when, for example, when Uranus went into Pluto in 2018 and 2019, I do believe and I hope that all the shifts in mass immigration, the wars, has a more picture of, we know what we created. There is a saying that life will never be as before from 2008 to now. That's not astrology, it's just what people say in general, that we are looking at a new future, but we are here, not me, but the sky is telling we still have that hope, because an awareness of Uranus, Pluto surfacing from mass consciousness, and Neptune allowing that force to be heard. For example, in 2018 or 2019, Neptune has traveled to the degree of 16 degrees. So now we know we have to clean up the water, and it will go all the way to 2026, which is that great hope for, we shouldn't call it survival, is life goes on, people get married, people fall in love and they get married, and it's just the shift in the masses that are interesting for us to have studied. And when we see the other planet that was very strong from the point of looking at shifts at that point in 2019 or 2018 and 19, Pluto is in 21 degrees and it has to hit 30. That would be in 2024, and then 2026 will be in Neptune. So 2024 is then, 2018 and 19 is halfway, and we respect that as looking at the news sometimes when we have this shift in awareness of earth quality, how people live, how people lose their home because of war, then this is also part of giving that hope that astrology can speak in very practical applications. I do thank you for staying with me from the sky to earth.